Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we make sense of the weekend's football. Joining me today, it's Joseph, it's Zacharias. How the devil were your weekends, and did you like the new intro? I've simplified it. You know, for the last 4 or 5 years we've gone where we go through the ups and downs from the most recent match week in the Premier League. I'm sick of it. Tongue twister. Joe, how was your weekend? And do you like the new intro?
It was good, mate. Quite a heavy day on Saturday watching the football and drinking, but nevertheless, I spent a hungover day yesterday, 8 hours of wallpapering, which is like hell on earth. I mean, if there is a torture method out there in the world that is the worst of the worst, it is wallpapering, detailed wallpaper, where you have to align each tiny little bit with the next sheet. I mean, it was hell on earth, but we got through it, mate. We got it done. And once it's done, you feel quite a sense of accomplishment. So not too bad.
The end result is always disproportionate to the effort you put in when it comes to wallpaper, because that is a craft and a half. Zachary, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Watched Chelsea lose, which was sad. But we move. We move in this life. We move.
Okay, no one mentioned enjoying the new intro. I'll just segue into the next segment then. Of course,
we enjoyed it, mate. We enjoyed it.
We go through the talking point, a winner, a loser, and we pick our moment of the week. Let's start with the talking point then. And it was going to be Arsenal failing to turn up for the North London derby, but Everton pipped them to the post, didn't they, by sacking Rafa Benitez after a dismal 2-1 loss to lowly Norwich. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the camel's back has been going for some time, hasn't it? Now, prior to this fixture, the Canaries hadn't scored a goal in 9.5 hours. Then in less than 20 minutes, they'd notched up 2 against Rafa's meek Everton. No other way to describe them, albeit, one was an own goal. That means 20% of Norwich's goal haul for the season was scored in this game. That's enough. That is enough to get someone the sack alone. That is how bad they are. There's having a bad day, then there's losing convincingly to this Norwich side, Joseph. I mean, was the most damning aspect of the loss the fact that Rafa had the likes of Calvert-Lewin back at his disposal?
I don't think so. Because this has been building for quite some time, hasn't it? It has been dismal football for months now under Rafa Benitez. And yes, Calvert-Lewin is back, but this is only his second game, I think, since September, isn't it? So we have seen a huge problem for Rafa Benitez in those forward areas, and getting shots off in good positions remains an issue for his side, or did remain. He's now out of a job. I think they're outshot, weren't they, by Norwich 14-12. Like you said, I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, his inclusion, has helped Rafa either, because it was almost like with Calvert-Lewin out of the side, people could say, well, he hasn't got his first choice striker, he's got so many problems, they've been so poor in the transfer market. Calvert-Lewin's come back and they still look shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's not been a drastic improvement with him on the pitch. I just think the sacking and the timing of the sacking, it's just so bizarre in my head. I understand that they've been poor for months, but then if that's the case and you were considering chopping Rafa, why sell Luca Dean when the only reason you've sold him is because he's gone to war with Rafa? And why sack Marcel Brands, who has probably had it coming for a while? But let's be frank, the real reason behind the Marcel Brands sacking was to give more power to Rafa Benitez. This feels all over the place, classic Everton, and whoever the next manager that comes in, I'm sure will be fairly furious already at the sale of Luca Dean in the same window as they sack the manager who was at loggerheads with him. It's just bizarre, isn't it? But it probably is like a month too late, I would say.
Yeah, effectively starting again, aren't they? Not ideal halfway through the season. Now, a lot of the criticism, to be fair to Everton fans, hasn't been necessarily just about results. It's been about the performances as a whole. They are currently conceding 2 goals a game. Now, if Rafa's brand of football wasn't yielding defensive solidity, not giving you much, is it? Hard on the eye, DJ.
Yeah, exactly. As an Everton fan, you spent half the season watching Rondon play up front. You've not seen your star player. You've just let go of one of your best assets in attack in Digne. And now you're watching Mikolenko at fullback, who at the moment I haven't got an opinion on. He's only played a couple of games. Keane have one of his worst games in an Everton shirt, scoring an own goal. And defensively, you're a mess. And the thing is, right, it was always destined to go this way from the start. We saw this when he was hired. Obviously, a Liverpool well, I was going to say Liverpool legend originally, but whether he's still that now after joining Everton. But hiring Rafa Benitez, who has such links to Liverpool and their rivals, and the fans never liked it in the first place, and the fans never really ever got behind it. And you're playing this counter-attacking football, and you're watching your team have to sit back all the time, and then as you said, your star striker is injured for the majority of the time. It's just not been an enjoyable watch for an Everton fan. There have been some little wins. Damari Gray, I think, has been a good win under Rafa Benitez. He was always kind of going to be a win for such a small price that they paid. Gordon, I guess, has played a lot more football under him, and he's really become a first-team regular, which is another positive. But apart from that, like I look at this Rafa Benitez reign and think, has much really happened? I think for a little while we were all kind of just saying, it's Rafa Benitez, he'll get himself out of this hole, and it just never really happened. But as I said, I kind of felt like it was probably destined to fail from the start. It's kind of almost a little bit like when he was the Chelsea manager, right? Like the fans didn't like him there either.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Only averaging around 40% possession this season as well. It's been pretty attritional stuff, hasn't it? And if you're not getting the results and you're deploying that methodology, it can come back to bite you in the arse pretty quickly, and that is what's happened. I mean, they were supposed to play Burnley Newcastle over Christmas on the 26th and the 30th of December, respectively. I mean, if he plays those games and wins them, is he still in a job? Maybe. No. I mean, they could have gone his way, so I do feel a certain degree of sympathy. But the performance against Norwich, that was the death knell, wasn't it? 0.54 expected goals against one of the worst teams in Premier League history. I mean, they have improved under Dean Smith, yes. But still, the mind boggles. And the mind boggles even more, like you said, Joe, given how much power Moshiri ceded to the Spaniard. And then they axed him in an emergency meeting 24 hours after that result. I mean, post-match, I think Rafa, he didn't show any signs that his sacking was imminent, and insisted that he was still sort of dealing with problems that were more than 6 months, a year in the making.
I said before, I came here to fix problems that is not just the last 5 months. Maybe we are talking about years, and then you try to fix this problem, but you need time. And then with the best players or the top scorers last year without playing half of the season, so it's more difficult. Now they're coming back. Hopefully we will be stronger, and hopefully we'll have more chances to keep doing what we have done in the second half.
And confident you will get that time from the board?
It's just I am a professional. I'm working, trying to do my best.
Right, let's move on to managers then, gentlemen. I'll read off the favourites for you right now. Roberto Martinez heads up the list. Duncan Ferguson to return in an interim capacity once more. Wayne Rooney, who has been doing miraculous work at Derby County. Frank Lampard, Rudy Garcia, Graham Potter. Joe, out of that shortlist, who would you opt for and why, buddy?
I mean, if you're an Everton fan, if you're an Everton member of the board, I know that he's supposedly ruled himself out, but you have got to be going balls to the wall, chucking all of your cash at Graham Potter. You've got to do all you can for that move, in my opinion. I think Roberto Martinez would be a weird appointment. He was good on his first stint, wasn't he? But it feels like muddled thinking to go back to him. Duncan Ferguson feels a bit like a sticky plaster, doesn't it? Rooney would be a risk, although he is doing fantastic work at Derby County. Quite how he's got them off the bottom of the table, I'm not too sure. I just think Graham Potter offers what Everton need in terms of a long-term project manager that can come in, can build a unit, can build a squad, has a very clear identity. And I think that not only should they go out and get Graham Potter from Everton, I think they should go for a double snipe and also look to take Dan Ashworth, Brian's technical director, and look to bring him into that Marcel Brand's director of football role that is now vacant post his sacking and post Rafa Benitez. Obviously, Dan Ashworth has been in talks with Newcastle United over their director of football position. It remains to be seen whether he's going to take up that role. He was given permission to undertake those talks by Brighton, and I do wonder, I think Graham Potter, his name gets thrown in every single time that there's a job available at the moment because he's doing that good a job at Brighton. But I don't think at the moment any of the really super elite clubs are going for Graham Potter. Obviously, Guardiola's very safe in his job. Tuchel very safe. You'd say Jurgen Klopp's, of course, very safe. Man United are probably going to target Pochettino in the summer. Conte, even though we were talking about him potentially leaving on Sunday Vibes, isn't going anywhere, and Arteta's building a project. So Everton, you might see as one of those status clubs that he thinks he can elevate up into those top 6 positions. I just think that is a really good option for Brighton. Whether or not Graham Potter would say yes, I'm doubtful, but I would just be pumping money at him and going all out for him.
Zach, you're and ahhing. What for? Come on, get it off your chest, big man.
I just don't think Potter says yes. Like, does he look? He's got Brighton into a nice place where he's got a good level of control at the club. Like, he can ask for certain signings. The board backs him fully, and then he goes to. I think swapping that for the mess that is Everton at the moment is a huge risk, especially if they don't back him in the summer with the
it's
players.
It's a club of much bigger structure and history. Yeah,
they're more. They have more.
Everton.
Yeah, for sure. They have better history. They have probably more money than Brighton as well. Well, actually, probably not with the way things are going. But I just think it's a huge risk because if you go there and you're not backed and you don't get the players you want to play the Graham Potter style of football, then it just you ruin or you scupper any chance of maybe trying to get a top 6 job. Whereas he could stay at Brighton for another 2 years, if no job came up, and probably still increase his chance to take over as a top 6 manager. I think taking Everton is a huge risk, especially as well if they lose Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the summer as well.
But from Everton's perspective,
if you're looking for a manager, Potter's probably the number one to try and go for at least. But I just don't think he takes it.
If Mashiri could pull off a Graham Potter signing, I would take back every bad word I'd ever uttered about his leadership, about his stewardship of that club. That would be an unreal signing. And I agree, Joseph, exactly the sort of thing they should be targeting to get back to where they feel they should be in the league, which is snapping at the heels of those Europa League places. But I feel like now, Everton, really unappealing prospect for any aspirational manager, given the mess they are currently in. It's too far into the season to really reverse the form any meaningful way. You can come in, do a great job, and still finish mid-table there, which, it isn't great on the resume, is it? I think what Everton need to do now is look for a pragmatic manager that's not going to dictate what sort of player he needs in order to make his way of playing work, right? I think they probably need someone who has a strong history of motivating players, of squeezing existing talent, getting the very best out of a limited pool of players. And I'll perhaps go for someone, with a bit of fire in his belly, like Gennaro Gattuso. I know that's an out there suggestion. We're normally quite sensible with these things. I could throw a Lucien Favre in there. I could throw an Ernesto Valverde in there. But at the moment, I don't see any top-level manager really
Allardyce
coming in. I mean, Sam Allardyce,
bring him in.
I mean, they are 16th, aren't they? We're starting to look at Sam Allardyce territory.
It's going to be Lampard.
But
it's going to be Lampard.
Even Frank Lampard might see this as somewhat of a risk, but it would be an unreal offer. Maybe too good to refuse, Zach, if you're Frank Lampard at this point, and you've kind of been overlooked for previous jobs.
I mean, last I heard, in terms of when I watched that Gary Neville interview, he said that he wasn't too keen on any job too far away from London. He wants to still live in London because he's just had a kid and obviously his family. Whether that changes if it's Everton, who knows, and the money. The other thing as well, I think he's quite keen on is that he wants a pre-season. He wants a pre-season before he can just jump in.
He can't be this picky, mate. He's been rejected.
You say he can't be this picky,
but he's been passed over for multiple Premier League roles, and this is a huge job.
He is being picky. Like this is what we've seen so far. So would it shock me if he's picky with Everton and says give it Duncan till the rest of the season, and then says maybe I'll come in pre-season?
Yeah, but how can Frank Lampard, who's been out of a job, come in and try and dictate that? Like, if they give it Duncan Ferguson to the end of the season, there'll be much better candidates available in the summer than Frank Lampard. If Frank Lampard wants that role,
I agree. But I'm just going on what the history has been so far of what Frank Lampard's done with his managerial choices after Chelsea. I mean, the other thing as well, in terms of his brand of football, possession style and possession-based football, and wants to play it really nice and dominate possession. Losing Lucas and attacking fullbacks, losing Lucas Digne probably puts him off it as well. Like, if I look at that squad, you're looking for a manager that that wants to play a little bit nasty. I guess that doesn't really care too much about keeping the ball to all that much. And they have players in midfield who can do it. Allan, I think, is fantastic for that kind of football.
Andre Gomez still in there
for sure. But I just think fullback wise, Coleman bombing forward doesn't really incite me too much. Milenko, don't know enough about whether he can do it. If I'm Frank Lampard, do I sit there and go, is this even more detrimental to my career than rather waiting another 6 months?
No, if you're Lampard, I just cannot. If this job is available and you're Frank Lampard, like, I know that they're supposedly in the relegation. They're not going down. Everton, they're not going down this season. There's 4 much worse teams than Everton, 4 much worse.
But you think long term though, bro?
And I think
the
fans are realistic enough to accept that they're not going to be challenging for Europe this season. He can come in, assess the squad, figure out what's going on, and look to rebuild in the summer. Like I think that this
with what
is
money though?
About as good a job as he can possibly hope to get, Lampard.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised that they've not adopted sort of a similar stance to Manchester United on this, where it's like, okay, let's hire an interim coach for the last, third half of the season. You what? Sorry, mate.
I said it's only been a day, so they might do. You never know. But
from the wording in their press release, it looks like they're looking for a permanent manager, and I don't know if this is the best. They're not putting themselves in a strong negotiating position, are they, at current? So I don't know if just riding it out until the end of the season, accepting mid-table mediocrity, and then looking for a new manager when the playing field is a little bit more level is the wiser thing to do. I would be inclined to do that. Go for a Rudy Garcia, go for a Fonseca, go for a Gattuso, see how they do until the end of the season on a short-term deal, and then we'll reset at the end of the campaign. Because at the moment, probably the wrong guys will make themselves available for the top job, and the right guys will rightfully be put off. Who is one January signing that you think the club has to make? Very difficult at the moment, given they have no manager, given we don't know what sort of style of play the new manager will incorporate moving forward. But what is the one position you feel like Everton need to strengthen in the winter window before we move on to our winners section, Joe?
I don't know, man. There's about 12, isn't there, of the 11 positions available they need to strengthen. January market is not ideal for Everton. They just need a right back starter as well that starts over Seamus Coleman. But I think that's a position to identify in the summer, to be honest with you. They just need somebody to... I don't honestly know. I have no clue. I have no clue.
All right, Zach, any more of a clue?
I think, as you said, a big one is depending on what that manager wants to do and what kind of football he wants to do. Another centre-back may not be awful to play with Ben Godfrey. Like, Keane is fine, and he normally does actually have better games than he did against Norwich, so I think that's a possible option. But I was just looking at their squad there, like maybe another. I mean, they've got wingers coming out their ears, but I mean, maybe someone to kind of a bit more experienced than Anthony Gordon. Though I do think Anthony Gordon is a good player. I think it just depends on who the manager is really before we can comment on who they need.
Maybe somebody a bit creative through the midfield. Like, their midfield can be quite attritional, can't it? And losing Luca Dean's creative ability,
I think shout, actually.
They potentially need another creative option that can slot balls through, obviously, post the James Rodriguez era. So somebody in that sort of 10 space, depending on whether the manager wants to play a 10, remains to be seen. I don't know who that guy is, but Everton fans, you should let us know in the comments below and who you want as your new manager.
Yeah, perfect. Let's move on to our winners section then. We spoke about Everton quite enough. And our winners this week are Leeds. I mean, Aston Villa and Felipe Coutinho were in pole position to take our winner's spot after a spirited second half comeback against Manchester United. Played very well there, didn't they, the Villains? But it's an injury-ravaged Leeds that won me over this week. Bielsa's side, of course, beating West Ham in a pretty enthralling counter at the London Stadium, thanks to a hat-trick from Jack Harrison, finished 3-2. And this puts some daylight as well between them and 18th place Norwich. And I think we can all agree Leeds probably don't really deserve to be in the conversation for relegation this season. Bielsa called it a triumph for the players and said that the effort was moving. So I loved how sort of romantic he got after the final whistle. Joe, who moved you most in this game?
I mean, I suppose you've got to look at Jack Harrison, haven't you? Obviously taking home the match ball. And he hasn't hit the heights and progressed, I think, as fast as some of us felt he would. Obviously, when he joined Leeds, we were really excited about that move, and it worked out perfectly, didn't it? But stuttered a little bit this season, had a few injury problems. I think he's had, prior to this, 1 goal in 14 starts.
Yeah.
Now starting to put together a little bit of form, 5 goals and assists in 15 because of the hat-trick at the weekend, of course. But I think his issue has been the team issue, really. With so many injuries, it hasn't flowed and functioned as a classic Bielsa system would, and I think that has caused Jack Harrison's output to dip slightly. It's caused the team's output to dip slightly, and I just want to give a massive shout out to this Leeds side who have scratched and borrowed and bruised their way through games at times, playing teenagers out of position,
who are you
with
calling
no
out there,
substitutes on the bench, haven't pissed and moaned and tried to get games cancelled, but have just got on with it under Marcelo Bielsa. And I think that's really, really fantastic. Big shout, of course, to Rafinha. It's almost boring talking about Rafinha now because he is just so exceptional, isn't it?
He's surely getting a move in the summer.
7 chances created in this game, which is absolutely outrageous. 10 goals and assists in 18 starts this season. He is destined for a Champions League level side. The links to Bayern were pretty strong in this window at the tune of 50 million euros. I think 50 million euros is a joke for a player of Rafinha's quality. Honestly, I really do. Anybody who's getting him out of Leeds for anywhere near that is either a miracle worker or has some sort of blackmail over the Leeds board, because he will be going for close to double that in the summer. He's that good.
You're touting for a £100 million move.
Well, that's about 85 million quid, isn't it, if you convert it from the Euros figure? And I think he is worth around about that figure, somewhere between £75 million and £85 million. I think is fair for Rafinha in the current market, to be honest with you. It's not an awful lot more than the Manchester City paid for Riyad Mahrez out of Leicester, either, is it? And I do think he's not quite at Riyad Mahrez's level, because he was winning Premier League titles with Leicester, but he's such an exceptional talent at 25, knows he's destined for the Champions League, and Leeds are in an extremely powerful position. They've got him on a long-term contract. They're going to be staying in the league. He loves playing his football under Marcelo Bielsa, who is a coach that I mean, he could be combustible, but I don't see him leaving Leeds in the immediate future, let's put it that way. So I think Rafinha is destined to go right to the very top, mate.
Yeah, he's an absolutely phenomenal player, isn't he? Also, got to say, absolutely livid at myself for taking Jack Harrison out of my draft fantasy team about 2 weeks ago. I mean, he had 1 goal in 14 starts prior to this match, and now he's on 5 goals and assists in 15, looking a lot healthier for him after his first career hat-trick. Zach, I mean, XG had this game at 2 apiece. And I think West Ham can count themselves a little bit unlucky that they've not left with at least a point, right? They were good for large parts of this game. Of course, we have to shout out the fact they played midweek as well. They're definitely tired in the last 20. But who caught your eye from a Hammers perspective?
I mean, the guy that just continues to smash it for the Hammers now, Jared Bowen. Thought he was a brilliant player when he was at Hull City. And he's continued that in the Premier League. Now 8 goal involvements in his last 7 games for clubs, for West Ham across all competitions. It's ridiculous. Surely, if he continues at this rate, he'll be in contention for an England appearance as well and get a call up to the national team.
How much do you think he's worth, Bowen, West Ham?
I have a weird feeling that he might go to Liverpool, you know. I really, really do. But no, Jared Bowen, he continues to impress. Mate. He continues to impress every single time. Like West Ham, I think Pat said it once, that they have 2 scouts. One that just sits in the Czech Republic and then one that just sits in the Championship, and that's just how they do their business, and they're very, very good at it. It was a fantastic signing. I think we all kind of had a feeling Jared Bowen would be good, but to this level so quickly as well, where he's already one of the kind of threats that West Ham have. He's such an exciting player to watch. I thought Fornals was also really good. He got his 5th goal of the season, which is as many as he managed in 33 appearances last year for the Hammers. Started really slowly, and I think actually at Football Daily we all kind of backed him to do really well at West Ham when he moved there, but it looks like it's starting to come true. It's starting to deliver on his promise. Some not so good players, I guess, from West Ham. Diop had a rough game at the back for the Hammers, who's kind of dragged all over the place. Vlasic as well didn't look too great. And I also got to say we saw a double substitute in this game that you don't see every day. Lewis Bate got brought on in the first half and got brought off in the second half. It was bless him for the 18 years
I felt
old,
for him as well. That was
19.
obviously just a tactical decision, and it was nice of Robbie Keane to point that out in commentary because, of course, this was his Premier League debut, and that is not the debut you dream of, right? I think we all thought he would get more minutes following that £1.5 million move from Chelsea. It didn't materialise. He's had a bunch of chances recently, and it's not like he didn't capitalise on it in this game. It was a tough one to come in for.
Yeah.
Rodrigo obviously came on, didn't do all that well, but was maybe a little bit more energetic, was able to press a little bit more from the front. But yeah, I thought it was very nice of Robbie Keane to point out it was nothing performance related following the final whistle. Anyway, let's give David Moyes the last say on this, because he was pleased with his team's efforts, but not pleased with Premier League scheduling, and I think he's got a point.
I can't understand the Premier League squeezing in that game. We've only got one game down when some of the teams are 4 or 5 games down. Leeds have got 2 games down and they didn't play a midweek game. So I'm asking the question why they've got 2 games to play. We had 1, but they squeezed theirs in, but not theirs.
Our losers this week, gentlemen, are Newcastle, and that is, of course, because they drew at home with Watford after going 1-0 up. And it means the Magpies have now dropped 21 points from winning positions. An awful, haunting record. You'll be unsurprised to learn that is the worst in the division. In fact, they've only won 1 of the 10 games, the last 10, in which they've scored first. Brittlementality.com. Joe, let's start by assessing the debut of £25 million man Chris Wood in this game.
I mean, mixed, but harsh to demand him hit the ground running this season. He hasn't been quite up to his usual standards, as he is sort of a 10-plus goal a season Premier League striker. He's only hit 3, I believe, this season, and £25 million does feel a lot of money for a striker who's only scored 3 goals, but it does cripple your rivals. It does give you a target man. It gives you a replacement for Callum Wilson. He can play up front with Callum Wilson as well when he's fit. So I think overall it's a good signing. A little bit harsh to demand loads out of him, given he hasn't played with any of his teammates, probably trained with them once potentially, if that. Did get 3 shots off on the day. 2 of them were headers, lost possession 7 times, won all 4 of his aerial duels, as you expect from such a big presence up there. And I think over the course of the season that will bear fruit, particularly from the delivery of Kieran Trippier at both set pieces and in open play from that right hand side. I can see the Trippier-Wood combination bearing a little bit of fruit. Do I think it keeps them up? I think it gives them a much better chance, a much better chance. So overall, I think it's a good move. A bit of a scratchy debut, but never mind. I really like Chris Wood as a player.
I mean, even if he only scores 3 to 5 goals for Newcastle, that's almost a 6 to 10 goal swing, because they're of course denying Burnley those goals, aren't they, in the process? I mean, let's hear from a man who did score a goal in this game. That is Allan St, Maximin, who said it was a good draw for Watford, but a bad draw for Newcastle.
You feel like it's again the same story. You try to fight again, and they start to manage the game just for a draw. So they kick the ball long and start to come really difficult to score. And that's what's happened tonight, because they know they don't have the chance to win this game, so they have the lucky to score. And it's a good draw for Watford and really bad for Newcastle.
I gotta say, ASM, not sure I agree with that, because Watford outshot Newcastle 18-12 when Moussa Sissoko probably passed up the biggest opportunity of the game. Awful attempt from him. Anyway, this result now means that Norwich have overtaken Newcastle in the table. What on earth? Dean Smith, can he do it? Will he facilitate a great escape?
Imagine.
However, Zach, they have been linked with some more exciting names in the last 24 hours. Take me through a few of them before we round off the show with our moment of the week.
Yeah, well, the Botman deal is now dead in the water, even though was it really even floating in the first place? Plus, it's also worth saying that the Telegraph are reporting that a deal for Sevilla centre-back Diego Carlos is close, with apparently a £28 million bid for the centre-back.
Crazy, isn't it?
Keep in mind, the Toon Chiefs are willing to offer £100,000 a week for the Brazilian. Keep in mind, they are a relegation side candidate at the moment, which is treble the amount that he is on currently with Sevilla. It's nuts that Newcastle are doing this, but fair enough. Either way, fans are doing their part Look at the atmosphere before the game.
Look at the atmosphere at St James's Park. Wow! How will the Watford players cope with that? We shall find out.
Right then, gents, this episode's getting long, so let's wrap up moment of the week nice and quickly. I've got 3 options for you. Joe, I fully anticipate you picking a 4th that you brought to the table yourself. We've got the James Ward-Prowse knuckleball free kick.
Oh, it's
absolutely frivolous. Reigning champs Algeria, shot
Oh, mate, don't.
by Equatorial
Hey,
Guinea
go on,
in the
Zach.
AFCON. Zach already disassociating himself from his Algerian heritage after that result. And Sam Obaseki making his debut on Transfer Talk on Sky.
I mean, I would
Things
love
you
to say Sam
see.
Obaseki, but I'm not going to say him. I'm going to say James Ward-Prowse's free kick, the best free kick taker, best set piece taker in the world, bar none.
Is he better than
Nobody
Bex?
strikes a static ball like James Ward-Prowse. He's not better than Bex, but he's getting pretty close. It's just insane. The level of technique required for that
So
goal
far
on the
out.
weekend is just insanity, man. So yeah, James Ward-Prowse for sure.
What are you going to go for, Zach? Not Equatorial Guinea by any chance? You're going to give them a little bit of, put a bit of shine on them.
They deserve the win. Algeria is
What
just
about Sierra Leone
awful
yesterday?
Yeah, Sierra Leone. The keeper mistake as well was rough.
Yes,
Bless him. His
so
face
funny.
when it goes under his arms.
are
I'll
you
go
doing?
Samuel Abasaki, mate. What a boy. On Sky Sports News.
Shout out Oba. He needed a little bit of a comeback after getting an absolute blasting in Team Talk episode 3, didn't he? And he stepped up. He delivered on live television, so fair play to him. Right, gents, have we got anything to plug across Football Daily, Euro Football Daily, Snapchat and whatnot? Zach, what are you saying?
Team Talk, baby. We were sponsored by EA Sports, so we went through our Team of the Year. It was a feisty episode. As Chris has already hinted, Sam loses his head. Pat also loses his head a little bit as well, by the way. There's one moment Pat gets so fed up, but yeah, make sure you check it out.
Yeah,
Rightly so,
Also-
because Sam's just waffling nonsense. And also, he does, though, Pat says Grealish in his team of the year, which is just a huge whiff, in my opinion. But
Took the words out of my mouth. Grealish Team of the Year in that front three, not having it whatsoever. Tomlinson, what else we got?
You can watch We Need to Talk as well. We actually put it out on Saturday, so you might well have missed it. If you did miss it, go and watch it, because I was looking at one player each club should sell in this window.
Perfect. The content is coming thick and fast. Make sure you're taking it all in. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, notifications on, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.